first introductions to yourself, your Palestinian Community Network. Here's the Twitter. I'm gonna share this. So just to get started as a warm up, tell us a little bit about. Oh, sorry. Here's the page. Tell us a little bit about your organization, the kind of work you do. I've been following your organization for a little bit. You guys do a lot of great mutual aid and activism. So please share us about some information about your organization to start off with.
Yeah. First, I want to apologize about the us joining a little bit late. The person who originally was supposed to present on our behalf had a little bit of emergency, so I'm filling in on the spot here. Yeah, so the U.S. Palestinian Community Network is a grassroots, it's a Palestinian Arab grassroots national organization. We do have chapters in 6 different states. We it was founded in 2006 as a way to revitalize the grassroots Palestinian movement here in the United States. And our main work is political prisoners work, but we also do a lot of like cultural resistance work where we bring cultural performers and workers and folklore dance groups from back home to perform here in the United States. We also do a lot of we send delegations back home. We do have a few BDS campaigns, grassroots BDS campaigns in Palestinian neighborhoods here in the United States, more specifically Chicago. We also are part of different BDS coalitions across the country. We confront Zionism wherever we can, wherever we see fit, like disrupting basketball games with the Israeli teams, Israeli film festivals. Whenever there's Israeli apologists that go around the country and spreading propaganda and Zionism, we try to disrupt those events as much as possible. And we do a lot of Black Palestinian work. So we do sit on the steering committee of the National Alliance Against Racism and Political Repression as well. So that's kind of our main areas of work.
Absolutely, and also want to ask you another follow-up question. Also, another way to just set up the discussion very broad because I know you had a lot of time to prepare, so that's why I'm coming on. So I'm gonna ask you a very broad question here. Okay. Why is it super important to resist the settler colonialism of Zionism? And can you explain the relationship and why you guys consider Israel and Zionism to be colonialism? So you can ask that any way you want. So I'll pass it to you, Hussam.
Yeah, of course. So as anti-imperialists, opposing Zionism and fighting Zionism is a must. Zionism is a settler colonial ideology from the start, right? From the beginning of it, from the birth, from Theodore Herzl. The whole idea was that why if it was started during a time when European countries were colonizing, especially Africa, but more other countries and other parts of the world. And this idea was that why Theodore Herzl's idea was why can't we have our own nation, right? Why can we European Jews have our own nations? You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if there are natives that live in that land, but this says this can be a great way to improve our relationship with Western imperialists, right? Palestine was chosen as a very strategic location because it connects Asia and Africa and Europe, and this was it wasn't a religious basis, right? It wasn't a religious movement. So that was the idea of Zionism. And so the idea was to go there, displace the natives, get rid of them, and take over the land and make the land an extension. Then make this entity, the Zionist entity, an extension of European imperialism, right? So and that's what it is now, right? It's a white settler colonial state. Its whole reason its whole reasons existence is because of the support and unconditional support that it gets from Western imperialist countries, especially the United States. The United States gives Israel $3 billion a year, which makes it the biggest recipient of aid in the world. So that, I mean, that's what it is, right? If it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck, right? And so because it's an extension of Western imperialism, it serves as a way to control, to dominate, and to dominate the region, right? So anytime there's an uprising, Israel, puts it down, right? Any like anti-imperialist uprising, any United States uprising, right? Or even sentiments, right? Or regimes, right? The Israel will do its best, to kill that whatever uprising that's happening, whatever movement is happening against the United States. So it serves as a like the left arm of the United States imperialism.
Absolutely. We're gonna dive into that here very soon. First things first, I want to say what's up to my friends that joined us here. We rallied the troops together. So I'm glad that Rome, my brother, and Zoya, my amazing co-host Zoya's Love, Zoya's Life, was able to join me today. She helped us out a lot on the Anti-Imperialist Summit. So I want to get you guys in here. I want to ask another question to Hussam here. Because I covered this issue a lot, and I remember still like researching and learning about Israel Palestine. And as an American, we get a lot of bad information, because there's so much lies, and just growing up naturally, not researching too much into it. I used to believe just casual lies, like, oh well, just both sides fighting. It's like some conflict. Like they would sell it, and I remember thinking it being before I became like really educated, before I really became hard into anti-imperialism, it was sold to me as some sort of religious conflict that just can't be helped. Oh, the Muslims and the Jews are fighting again. So I'm gonna ask you this question. Now I want Rome and Zoya to chime in with anything they may any misconception they may have and their overall thoughts after you get done speaking. But you can speak on that and other general misconceptions that people in the West have regarding this conflict.
Yeah, because I didn't really learn anything about it because of me being an atheist and basically blocking myself out of certain corners. You know what I'm saying? Even if we was fellow comrades and whatnot, I just didn't want to see the praying and all that, blah, blah, blah. And it really, it really kept me out of a whole bunch of what's really going on. And as we tune in, and I'm hearing the cries of my brothers and sisters now, even if they are, you know what I'm saying, Muslim to atheist, whatever, wherever they are at. Because we used to run a Facebook group. They used to focus on helping people try to escape, you know what I'm saying, getting fucked up in certain places in the Middle East. This is probably like 6 years ago. And that's what really tuned me in. Then now we see it. Now I can see the lies for what they are. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, this is America. Of course, they're lying about the Palestinians, because we see that the Palestinians, they have some type of defense, but it isn't good enough with Israel and the West putting money, iron domes, all this and that. And they saying, oh, well, look, these kids are throwing rocks at these army men. Why is these army men in this territory? Like, so you gotta really look at it for what it is. It's just the West expanding their arms, putting down the iron fist, using Israel as a puppet to, you know what I'm saying, do their dirty work, just like they're using Ukraine to do their dirty work to expand further east. I say Asia and Russia. They are surrounding Russia with weapons. So it's crazy. But you gotta wake up one day.
Do you want to take that
what spaces you're gonna have to connect with everybody, because it's gonna be a lot to learn and only so little time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the West just kind of placed this brutal, occupying regime in the middle of this region that they want to expand to, and they want to control, and they want to make sure that there's no resistance to it. I mean, the Arab nationalist movement that grew out of the '60s was one of the was one of the most dangerous movements to the United States, and because it had this like this like new consciousness, this new movement to like unite the Arab countries, to unite um and so it was also a socialist movement, right? In its birth. And so it was like, this is a scary movement, and we need to do anything that we can to put it down. The founders of Zionism were actually also not like religious, or not very religious, and some of them were actually atheists as well, right? But they used the religion to rally the crowd, to push people to first migrate to and colonize Palestine. And then now, of course, religion is used to make it seem that this is a two conflict thing, right? A two-sided conflict thing, right? And also, religion is used to get the support, right, of the the more religious settlers in Palestine and Israel. So definitely, I mean, there's no, like you said, there's like kids, and people throwing rocks, and then there's an occupying army that receives billions of dollars of aid, and has nuclear weapons,
Yeah.
and has one of the most advanced security apparatuses in the world.
How,
So
how do you
I
feel
don't
about
see how
Iran? How do you feel about Iran basically threatening Israel? Like this couple of days ago, Iran had sent some pictures to Israel of their bases, their military strongholds, where they kept their nuclear weapons, and basically was like, if you want to come get it, you know what I'm saying? Like we know where y'all shit at, so start if you want. How do you feel about Iran trying to step in to? But I know they have their own agenda, and this is what scares me.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying, with the Palestinians.
Yeah, I mean, the case of Iran is that that's
Iran.
it's is it's being threatened. It's been being threatened by the West and Israel for a long time. And what Iran is doing is actually defending itself, and it's saying, what, we've been invaded before, and no one has done anything about it. And we've had our democratically elected democratically elected president in the past overthrown. We've had the U.S. meddle in our country. We've had the U.S. Support and fund our people who invaded us and occupied us. And you know what? We're just going to stand up for ourselves here, and we're not going to let anybody come in our country and destroy it, right?
Right.
And Iran is considered one of the axes of resistance in the region, right? With Syria and Hezbollah, and and that's why Israel and the United States have problems with all these three countries, right? Two countries and Hezbollah, right?
And it's very interesting because Israel has been bombing northern Syria because of Hezbollah, and because they've been saying now. I've been calling the hypocrisy. You can speak on this as well. So I look into their reasoning that they give, and we all know it's bullshit. But they was like, well, the reason why we bombing this country illegally is because we feel uncomfortable with Hezbollah and Iranian militants being near our border, because Iran has the long-standing position that Israel is not real. It's a state that is encroaching on Muslim land, and we all know that it's essentially a client state of the United States. Now, the hypocrisy and the hilarious part of this isn't that the same reason that they criticize Putin? His argument is he don't want Nazis near his border, and they say, "Oh, how dare you do that?" But then Israel, like, we can bomb Hezbollah and Iranians in northern Syria, and that's 100% okay. Now, I got so many hypocrisies like that, but do you want to speak on that, Hussam? And then after that, I want to get you in there, Zoya. Go ahead, Hussam.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, this is something that we've been talking about, and we've been seeing, and it's disgusting to see the response and the hypocrisy of like NATO and the United States and the West, in response to Russia in Ukraine and the war, and then and the hypocrisy towards Palestine and Yemen and Syria, right? The United States will only condemn, and NATO, of course, will only condemn wars and violence when it serves them. You know what I mean? The United States does not care about Ukraine. It does not care about Ukrainians. Right? They're losing Ukrainians to further its agenda in Eastern Europe, right? And we saw the propaganda war against Russia pop up in hours, right? And something I've never seen, in my short political life. But then you have this, this illegal, settler colonial state of Israel that's been, bombing, occupying, stealing, Palestinians and Palestinian land, right? For decades. I mean, for 74 years, 75 years. And of course, the United States pours more money into that. That's because, United States, benefits from the existence of Israel and from Israel's continuing to colonize and occupy Palestine. And, the hypocrisy about sovereignty, like Israel, like you said, I mean, it's violating Palestinian sovereignty every day by illegally colonizing it and occupying it, but also regularly bombs Lebanon and regularly bombs Syria and regularly interferes in other countries and violates their sovereignty on a regular basis. So, but there's zero condemnation there.
And that was Cuba. Cuba actually said, "I'll get you right in your room, and then we can go Zoya." But that was Cuba actually said at the UN Human Rights Council when they were trying to kick Russia off the UN Human Rights Council. They said, well, for one, the United States is the biggest purveyor of human rights violation.
Right.
Secondly, the fact that they're not punishing the United States, it will all come back to haunt us because that means they're using human rights as a political weapon. And Cuba acknowledges it. They were like, bro, they put a blockade that stole billions from us. Right? It's like, so how are you going to condemn other countries while you guys are criminals? And then it becomes political. And you want to know what I noticed? It's been going on for quite a while, right? But there's a reason why, as anti-imperialists, as leftists, we must call this out. Because when you have this blatant hypocrisy that is withheld by the giant Western hegemony that is ruled by the United States, that means there's like this shield for the allies. So, and you think the allies don't know that this shield doesn't exist? So Saudi Arabia has doubled down on their war against journalists as well. The same way Israel started bombing way more countries. They escalated their bombing campaign in Syria. You see how they escalated their attack on Palestinians, and they now encroaching and kicking and assaulting Palestinians in East Jerusalem. Like the reason why they escalating this stuff because they know they have this Western shield that was established by the UN and their allies. So if you're one of the people that watch this, and you're like, why are you guys always calling out Russia and Putin? Calling out the West. Why are you guys not criticizing Russia and Putin? I'm like, because this is the global empire that I live under, and we have the right to call them. We have not the right, but we have an obligation to call them out, so that hypocrisy doesn't exist in the first place. Because if you live in a place and you allow this hypocrisy to exist, that's on you. You're a coward if you spend all your time criticizing Putin, criticizing leaders of China, for example. Focus on your state and stand for the communities that need it. But I'm gonna get Roman here, and then I'm gonna pass it to Zoya with a question about you.
No, I was just gonna say these people would never live comfortably. You know what I'm saying? These people will never live comfortably because it isn't their land. You know what I'm saying? It's just like how the white people here is afraid of black revenge. You know what I'm saying? Through liberation or whatever they want to say. Or if black people come up, how you know that they won't kill us? You know, but we can see this because it was just a bomb threat at the airport in Palestine, and everybody was losing their mind. Everybody was trampling over each other, and it was just a bag. Somebody just left a bag, you know. But this is, you know what I'm saying, this is going to be their mindset once they, like, you will never be able to live comfortably. And this shows, you know what I'm saying, it really shows with their actions of what happened then, because, you know, people are going to, you know, you're doing wrong. You know you're doing wrong.
I mean,
you know that this isn't.
Yep.
Yeah. So somebody's gonna come for you. You don't know when, you don't know how, you just know. and you will never live comfortably on that land. So free Palestine all day.
Yeah, I mean, if they're, if first of all, if they were right, if they knew they were right, they wouldn't spend so much money spreading, Zionist and Israeli propaganda all over the world. They wouldn't spend, so much money trying to, block and censor Palestinian voices, from different social media outlets. But also the fact that they repress Palestinians, so hard and constantly, and try to make Palestinian lives miserable, because they know that if they don't constantly repress Palestinians, the Palestinians will organize, will the resistance will grow, and eventually will grow into something that they can't control. I mean, Palestinians do still are able to achieve a lot, right, in their lives, in their social lives, but also in their resistance with the limited resources they have, and despite all the repression that they face from the Israelis. So imagine if they let go some of this repression on Palestinians. The Palestinians are what I mean. They will become even more powerful resistance, and will cause a lot of damage to the the Israeli Zionist project.
I want to give my friend, thank you for jumping on here on the panel with us. But I want to get Zoya. Do you have any thoughts? And I know we dabble a little bit into Ukraine, so you can speak on any hypocrisies on that if you wish. But I just want to get you in here because obviously we love hearing your opinions. How you doing, Zoya?
Awesome. Happy to be here. Thank you for hosting this incredible summit. I wanted to pose some questions to Hussam. First, I'm from the former Soviet Union, and I've been watching what's happening there. Obviously, it's incredibly heartbreaking. There are innocent people dying, as always happens in war. And what I've uncovered in studying that situation is from declassified documents that the CIA and MI6 have been funding these extremist movements in Ukraine that have caused this destabilization and the rise of extremism in that region. So, and now you have a generation of people raised on this kind of propaganda there that now are fighting with basically Nazis under the guise of nationalism, because they successfully created this boogeyman of Putin, where people are like, well, we know they're Nazis, but Putin is such an evil threat that for now it's okay for us to work with Nazis. So looking at the Israel and Palestine situation, I know there's also a lot of propaganda in that region. And I know I have Palestinian and Israeli friends. And I have friends who tell me that in Israel, it's basically mandatory to enlist in the army at the age of 18, even if you're a girl. And a lot of people living there do not want that war. But just like in a lot of countries, it's the people in power who decide the lives of everyone. And I've known friends who went to jail because they refused to serve in the Israeli army. So my question to you, and I've posed this, and I'm not sure what the answer really is. And I think all our liberation worldwide is connected, and that imperialism impacts everything globally. So what do you think would be like let's say that you had unlimited power today to decide the fate of that region. What do you think would be a solution for well, it's an interesting question, right?
I don't think we can answer that.
For all the people living there, including the people that don't want war, including Jews who after the Holocaust weren't Zionists but didn't know where to go. And Europe was rejecting these people. Part of the reason that Hitler was able to achieve a lot of his goals was because borders were closed down and Jews weren't welcome when they were trying to escape Nazi Germany. So I know people there that oppose everything that's happening to Palestine, but at the same time, they don't know the answer and they don't even know how to be allies. They attend protests pro-Palestinian and everything, and they just don't know the answer. So I wanted your thoughts on, you know, where do we go? How do we support the liberation of all people that are on the right side of things?
Yeah, and this is, this is probably not an answer that everybody would want to hear, but Palestine should go back to being Palestine, all of it, from the river to the sea, right? From the northernmost of it to the southernmost. The country of Palestine should return to what it was historically, which is Palestine, right? Owned and controlled by the Palestinian people, right? By the Palestinian people, who are the indigenous people of the land, who the land belongs to them, and the people who colonized us, right? And their descendants. I think that they have, they do have few choices to make, right? And that is, you either denounce your occupying colonizing state and join the Palestinian resistance and co-resist with us, or you could go back to Europe, where you came from, or where your parents or grandparents came from illegally. So I think that's a pretty simple answer. Of course, it's much more complicated than that, right? But I don't believe in coexistence. I feel like that's a very liberal term. As a liberation movement, I believe in co-resistance, right? So we need to resist together. If people really, really, didn't really oppose their brutal regime, then they must do everything that they can do to fight it internally as well. And I think that is a solution. And I think the Palestinians will never ever give up on our right of return. All the refugees and their descendants that were forced out of Palestine in 1948, 1967, and all the times between those and after, have the right to return by international law and must return to their stolen homes and stolen land. And we also, as people, we have the right, to self-determination. And we have the right to decide what our country, should look like, and what we want our country to be like. And we have the right to democratically rule the country. And I think that's what we need to aim for, and that's what we need to get back to, with the elimination of all Zionism and all any Zionist influence in the region.
I know hard times make strong people. So, I'm not religious, but I know, seeing what's going on in the times of Ramadan, and they are sending forces in to fuck with these people, not letting them pray and stuff like that. If I know one thing about religion, it brings people together. And I just hope that this really creates some type of force, not only, on the ground, but international, people seeing the truth of what's going on. This is why they censoring the shit. They not just censoring shit for Russia and Ukraine. They censoring shit for everything that we are doing around the world. They don't want people to see the truth, but you can only hide so much in the 21st century when everything is on camera. People just, come on, man. From Iraq, they was taking pictures and all that shit. So it's hard to hide something like that. It's hard to hide the war crimes nowadays. And I just hope that this brings a real resistance. It's going to light a fire that they never be able to put out, so.
Yeah. And when after I heard everything Hussam said, and my reaction to that is based, right? That's based as hell. That's exactly what we want for our Palestinian allies. Because there are a lot, once again, I use the term a lot, the progressives accept Palestine. They are supporters of the two-state solution. And I told you, it took me a while to educate myself. And once you understand this issue, to me, it only makes sense for a one-state solution. It's Palestine. That's your guys' land. You guys were kicked off. It's not a hard concept to understand. If you're American, and if you're watching this right now and you're clutching your pearls, listen to this. Imagine if your worst enemy, think of Russia, China, fill in the blank, wherever the ones you're most afraid of, right? Imagine they just kick in your door, wave in the fofo, and kick you out of your house. Then they're like, "Oh, we're sorry. I take the living room, you take the kitchen.
What are you doing?
I had the big bedroom, you take the smaller bedroom. You like, no, get the fuck out of my house. That's the situation. Is that an accurate analogy?
Pretty much, I think you kind of nailed it. Yeah, you know, I mean, that's what colonization is, right? You're there, and then some people, you know, from Europe, mostly Europe, right, come in and just steal your land and force you out. You know, commit massacres, multiple massacres. You know, threaten you that if you don't leave, you will be killed, or you know, you will be raped, or you will be put in jail, or you know, you don't have a choice, right? And then you know, what tell me, like, what do you do in that case, right? And by the way, international law, right, gives any people under occupation the right to resist. And we have a popular chant when we go out there.
Bring that up more. That's a great point.
Right. When we're out there at the streets, you know, protesting, we always chant, right? The resistance is justified when people are occupied, right? And I think that's something that's important for people in the West to understand, right? When Palestinians go out and fight for the liberation, it is because they have the right to, and it's because they're fighting, you know, to get their land back, and
At least they got the balls. You Americans, like, yo, I don't listen to Americans when it comes to foreign policy. Only a handful of them, because none of them, even if they do know it, they don't have the balls to even fight these type of people. Like these people are not only fighting Israel, which y'all don't understand. They're fighting us. You know what I'm saying? They're fighting many other countries around that's putting their little money in and want to get some money out of this war and send some drones over or whatnot.
And we're fighting our sellout leadership too.
Yeah. So. Yeah, at least they have the balls to actually get out there. We tell you guys, hey, let's at least go protest. You motherfuckers going to make some. So don't listen to these Americans. Fuck America. Fuck America and Americans.
I'm actually not too familiar with like criticism that you guys may have. Because I see you put that you mentioned a little comment like of some of your leaders. I'm not actually too familiar. Do you want to chime in, fill me in? Like, is there any criticism that you guys have of Palestinian leaders when it comes to this issues?
Yeah, so you know, this goes back to the 1993-94 Oslo Accords, when you know, a few Palestinian leaders signed the Oslo Accords for, you know, to work for a two-state solution. Right, this was made, you know, with the Clinton administration, and of course, I mean, it was made with the Israelis, but of course under the, you know, the facilitation of the Clinton administration. Basically to create a two-state solution, basically to, you know, the West Bank and Gaza would be for the Palestinians, and the rest of Palestine would be for Israel. And that was a betrayal of the majority of the Palestinians and the Palestinian streets. Palestinians completely reject the Oslo Accords. We denounce the leadership of the Palestinian Authority, which is the which actually has no authority, but it's in charge of the West Bank. But the reality is that they're just like, they're doing the dirty work of Israel. They have done so much to block the Palestinian resistance from growing and gaining any kind of grounds when it comes to resistance. So they're heavily criticized, heavily rejected in the Palestinian streets. The majority of Palestinians want to go back. We want to get rid of Palestinian Authority. We want to get rid of the Oslo Accords, and we want to go back to reestablishing the Palestinian Liberation Organization, which was the sole representative of all Palestinians all across the world at some point. But the Palestinian Authority, with the leadership of Mahmoud Abbas, has done so much to delegitimize the PLO and make it as undemocratic as possible, and doesn't, and not including all Palestinians. And the PLO is what makes sure that our voices are heard, and our voice all across the world, right? Every Palestinian, we believe that every Palestinian has a voice and has a role to play in the development of our liberation movement, regardless of where they resided and where they live, whether it be in Palestine, in the refugee camps, or in the diaspora all across the world. So the Palestinian Authority also coordinates with Israel a lot. So when Israel goes into the West Bank, the Palestinian Authority are either aware or just don't do anything, right? And sometimes what they do is they arrest Palestinians and Palestinian activists and organizers who are mainly of opposition parties, and hand them to Israel. And Israel, will put them in jail and prison or kill them.
And the reason why this is super interesting, because Rome, what does this remind you of? We connect the issue between Black Americans and Palestinians all the time.
Yeah.
And Hassan was just talking about how we feel like a lot of leadership in Palestine is continuing to work on behalf of the colonizers and oppressors, and selling out the real activists that are fighting the real fight, that making the true demands. So I'm asking again, Rome, what does that sound like?
Well, like a lot of the Democratic leadership here and the Black Caucus. I mean, we got so many people that get black faces in high places, man. That's all they are, right? Because we know as black Americans, even as activists, we're not some of the smartest guys that you probably gonna run into, right? But we are smart enough to know that if you are a true activist, if you are a true black leader, you are either on the streets or under the streets, you know what I'm saying, or under the dirt. There is no black leadership inside of the American government. So when you got these people speaking for you, now we got what's his face? What I try to put this name out of my brain, man. You know what the fuck I'm talking about.
There's a lot of people, like Ketanji Brown Jackson is one of them. Like, the reason why they will even put her there, because she is willing to interpret the laws written by colonizers, written by capitalists and white supremacy without complaining. That's why they're there. That's why black leadership is 100% okay with John Lewis, because John Lewis is willing to sell out the Libyans, and he allowed Barack Obama to destroy Libya by giving up his congressional approval. So that's why I want to ask you a little bit more about that, because we actually spoke about this before. The long-standing history of solidarity between Black Americans and Palestinians. So do you want to speak on that, Hassan? Because that's something that the Black Panthers spoke out about a lot. They had morals of George Floyd on Gaza Strip as well. So do you have anything that you want to add to that before I move on to the next part here?
Yeah. Just I forgot the term, but I just remembered it. Agent Comprador, right? That's what the Palestinian Authority is. Or they're just like they're petty bourgeois or bourgeois Palestinians who benefit a lot from the occupation. From Israel being there in existence, they actually benefit materially from it. And so, speaking of solidarity, I mean, the solidarity between Palestinians and Black folks in the States and across the world is nothing new, right? It existed for decades. It was there for a long time. But I'm going to talk about the experience I have in my short political life. But it's really, really powerful that when the uprising that happened in Ferguson in 2014, and Black people were shot at, were thrown a tear gas at, and one of the most beautiful things was when Palestinians in Gaza were given advice, right, to Black folks in Ferguson on how to deal with tear gas and how to avoid it and how to resist. Black people have struggled to form their own nation here in this country, and so as we Palestinians, we say we believe in the self-determination of our own people. We also believe that Black people in this country have the right to their self-determination. They didn't choose to come to this country, and so they have the right to establish their own nation here, and have democratic rule. rule themselves without the racism and the white supremacy and the repression that they face by the U.S. White settler colonial state.
Yeah, we basically looking in the mirror. You know what I'm saying? We just got different skin tones.
Right.
We definitely looking in the mirror, because I was just talking about how Black people do need to make our own nation, have our own government in America if we was to stay here. If we didn't want to move to our homelands and figure out where we are normally actually from or whatnot, if we wanted to stay here and make something, we should have the right to do that. And Palestine should be free of every fucking racist motherfucker, of every bomb. But it's not gonna happen without a fight.
Right.
Our fight or your fight. And this is why it's important for us to have these conversations, because we know that we're gonna have to come together in order for these things to stop. Right. The people on the ground, we're gonna have to have an international army, so to say, you know what I'm saying, to give out certain like you just explained how people was teaching us how to how to deal with being gassed by the police and whatnot. But yes, we're definitely gonna have to get the shit going and keep in contact with one another. And no matter where you are, everybody has to fight in this revolution, man.
Right. I mean, especially our enemies also organized, and our enemies won, right? Like they fund the same the money that goes to fund the U.S. military also goes to the Israeli military, but also militarizes and funds the police here in the United States, right? And the Israeli occupation forces, and police departments and sheriff departments, and military and the U.S. military here, right? Always exchange weapons, resources, tactics. You know what I mean? Like there's always a U.S. police department that goes to like Israel to like learn how
the NYPD and Israeli forces often exchange tactics. And it's very open. They train together. So that's why you see they do the same tactics. They beat up batons. I saw footage of them attacking Palestinians with batons. Ones who's not even resisting. Like not even, I can't even say they're being violent. Even that's too much. They're not even resisting. Like they just try and get out of the way. There was a footage of some Israeli forces that was hitting this pregnant woman with a baton. And I'm like, man, that's like, well, I saw in Ferguson. They tear gas y'all, which is a war crime. They tear gas us. It's the same thing. And that's what you guys are mentioning when you look at the relationship between Israel and the United States. Look at the relationship between the United States and the UK. Do you think they're just looking at one country? Mm-hmm. Why do you guys think I said we need to form an international leftist coalition? So if the United States is teaming up with Israel, my mindset is like, why don't we team up with Palestinians? We form an international resistance. And I'm not even the first one who thought about this either. Think about our revolutionary leaders we learned from. The Black Panthers, who wrote about this in detail, how the Palestinians gave material support to the civil rights movement, and they gave material support to Africa, to apartheid in South Africa. There was a tight connection between South Africans, African Americans that were going through Jim Crow laws here. Sorry, Jim Crow laws here, and then the Palestinians that is going through occupation. So to me, it only makes sense. Like, how are we going to have a movement from California to New York and say we're going to end imperialism? Like, no, they're everywhere. Like, how are we going to only do it in one country? So it's a crazy ambition. I don't know how we can do it. I really don't. I'm hoping that someone wise can help put this together. But I said we need international leftist movement. And let's be a lot of
one thing. Oh, my bad.
No, I'm saying that's how we do it. We organize, man.
Yeah. Because one thing I learned, is you never know who got what up their sleeve. Like I'd have met some people who got so much stuff, and they're ready, and I'll be like, damn, I thought I was ready. No, they're ready. And you never know who got what up their sleeve. Just talk your shit and be about it. I swear people are gonna be like, hey, you really about it? Like, yeah, you really about it. Okay, well, come with me. And they show you, and they got plans, the blueprints, and people out here is really ready. And I'm ready to expand, RBN and make have us get on the ground out there, South America. I'm ready to expand out to different countries and whatever. So we're gonna see how this go, but I figured, what I'm saying, all you gotta do is talk shit and really mean it. and people will show you the way. You know what I'm saying? If it ain't, even if it isn't the best way, it's a way. You know what I'm saying? The only thing we can do is fight. You know, fight what we can and fight how we can. You know.
The capitalists and the imperialists want us to do nothing more than have like oppression Olympics and to divide ourselves. Like, oh, we're just the black community. We got our struggle. There's Palestinians. They got the struggle over there, and that's by design. They try to pit communities against each other all the time. Like whenever you see, like, I talk to like some of these like black nationalists who like, well, we shouldn't be advocating for immigration, man. They're taking away the energy that we need to find for our liberation. And I'm like, you idiot, it's the same fucking thing. Like when we stand for Palestinians, while standing for my Latino brothers and sisters that have been harassed by ICE, when we stand against the police here, we're fighting the same struggle. The military industrial complex, the prison industrial complex, it's one unified front. It's one unified tool of colonialism, of imperialism, of capitalism. So that's why a lot of people are like, what do you mean by leftist coalition? So when I define left, when I say left, everyone got a different definition. I mean anti-capitalist, I mean anti-imperialist. That's my limit. Like if you're not that, that's not a leftist. A lot of people got different like interpretation of what that means. That's what I mean. And I put that out for a reason because capitalism and imperialism is the mechanism that drives oppression. Like when you see what happened in Israel, when you see what happened to our people, when you see multiple apartheids. Do you have anything else you want to add? And also have something else.
These Americans, bro, they never learn from history, so we are doomed to repeat it. So if we don't have solidarity, what's going to happen when ICE is done with Latinos and, you know what I'm saying, whatnot? What's going to happen when NYPD is done with this community or whatever? They're going to come to you. They're going to come for you. And it's best that we deal with these people before it even gets, it's already here. You know what I'm saying? Pick up a book, pick up something, fight.
Yeah, and not only is the struggle universal for everybody and everyone's liberation is connected, but the oppressors everywhere are being armed by the same weapons manufacturers. It's as clear as day simply with that. Go look at who's making the weapons in all of these conflicts globally. And it is a global conflict. And that is their biggest fear, is for all of us to start fighting together for our mutual liberation.
And I'm glad you brought this up because it's actually kind of ties to what I wanted to bring up. So you had, and it's all about weapon sales, right? It's all about weapon sales. You got Sweden that's funding the genocide in Yemen as well. Now they're trying to join NATO, which will start World War III, right? And let me I'll pull up the receipt. I don't want you guys just to take me at face value here. But you had Israel, and I remember you mentioned earlier how Israel was like, they was founded by atheists as well. And I don't think these people are literally like principled in their beliefs. And that's why you ask people like, how do the Jewish people who was oppressed by Nazis become the same thing that they're supposed to be fighting against? Because a lot of Jewish people I know are against apartheid. Like there's a large amount of Jewish people that are against the state of Israel, despite what a lot of people would have you believe, because they actually understand what their principles are. The people who are supporting this apartheid, especially after considering what the Jewish people have been through, I don't think you are living your values. And I'm not just talking shit. Look at this. Israeli weapons are being sold and used by Nazis in Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, they had former army personnel and soldiers, former soldiers, Israeli soldiers, or current that are on reserve, who went to Ukraine to fight as well. So not surprising. We're not surprised at all.
Wow. Well, I think this is a good time to get Zoe here because we all know what the goal is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. And I was looking up, I Googled like the distinction between a neo-Nazi and a Nazi, and they even said there's not much of a distinction. The only thing is like you had the Nazis that were talking about the Aryan race, and then neo-Nazis may talk about other people, like they may talk about like people like Caucasians or other white-skinned people. But they said it's not really that much of a difference. You're a Nazi if you believe in one nation, one people, one state. And that's their ideology. And you want to enforce that through violent authoritarian means. That's the distinction. So you have the Azov Battalion who been bombing and shelling and attacking ethnic Russians with the goal in mind, which was repeated by Stefan Banderas, of having a one people, one state, one nation. So how can Zionists be principled and they call people anti-Semites if you support BDS? Meanwhile, they're sending arms to Nazis in Ukraine. I want to pass it to Zoya, and I want to get Hassan in. I'll pass it to Zoya first, because did I get that right? Because Zoya is amazing on this topic. Do you have anything you want to add to that, Zoya?
Well, just the power of propaganda. You really, it's amazing what you can do in a generation to a people. As I say, Ukrainians and Russians were countrymen, and they lived side by side peacefully. But Ukraine is a massive region. I actually sent you the map a couple of days ago. I'll do it again right now. And now it's conflated all to being one people. But Western Ukrainians and Eastern Ukrainians are really different people. Eastern Ukrainians lived side by side with Russians, and everything was peaceful and there were no issues. Western Ukrainians always saw themselves as more European. They aligned themselves with Baltic countries, and they really wanted to be a part of that movement. When the Nazis came, they welcomed them with open arms. They were Nazis, not even neo-Nazis, Nazis. And they implemented tactics that were so cruel that the Nazis were outraged. The Nazis were cringing at what they were doing. But that Western Ukrainian people are different from Eastern Ukrainian people. And now it's been made into this one region. As you can see on the map, how small Ukraine really was, and then all of this land that was added on throughout time, including the Soviet Empire. And when the Soviet Union collapsed, Ukraine got to keep all of this land with massive Russian populations, which at the time nobody really opposed. And even Putin was sending billions in aid to help Ukraine. He wanted a good relationship with their neighbors. But of course, the American empire had other ideas. And they started these extremist movements. And now you have people that would never consider doing this 3 decades ago, murdering each other with insane bloodlust. The things I hear from people that are Ukrainian now, ready to kill Russian children to prevent them from growing into Russian oppressors. It's just really incredible how you can get normal people to pick up weapons and start slaughtering each other. And meanwhile, Ukraine is the largest country in Europe, and it's the poorest. So you have so much corruption there, where the people there themselves are suffering. They're being exploited, and the country's being robbed of all of its natural resources, which is what we've seen NATO and America do globally. They destabilize regions, they hurt the local populations. Meanwhile, they steal all of the resources. It is in America's favor to keep the region destabilized. Who is opposing diplomacy right now? And we all know that diplomacy is the only way that this war ends. It's the only way that any war ends. It's just a question of how massive is the pile of corpses going to be at the end of this, when we finally do sit down at the table and have diplomacy. But it looks like America is willing to let as many Ukrainians and Russians die as will allow them to continue to steal. And meanwhile, defense contractors are profiting off of all of this. We saw it happening in World War II. We saw it happening in Vietnam, where I was even reading reports where they were feeding information to both sides in the Vietnam conflict just to keep the conflict going, because war is profit. War is profitable. They do not care about how many people die. And unfortunately, I think in any country we look at, that most people just want basic human rights and stability and freedom, but the people in power determine how things go. I mean, even look at the people I know in Israel who oppose everything that's happening and went to jail themselves because they were like, there's just no way that I'm going to pick up a weapon against Palestinians. And I know Israelis who talk about Palestinians as their brothers and sisters. But ultimately, they just don't have that power. Because in every country, like, look at what's happening in America. Look at how many people opposed the Iraq War, and we still went in. So until we learn to build community and solidarity and actually organize where our numbers, which is our largest strength, can challenge the power of these people, we are going to be stuck going through these cycles all over the world. And that is why we see constant division. People really get into whatever issue is nearest and dearest to them, and justifiably so, but they miss out on the global unity that we all really need. With struggles in Africa, Latin America, under Soviet Union, we understood this. We had our own brand of propaganda, but it was anti-imperialist. And we grew up on learning how exploitative capitalist structures are, and that we need liberation amongst all people worldwide. And ultimately, I don't think Putin is going to be some great liberator for any of us. He's still a billionaire. It's still a capitalist structure in Russia. But what I am loving seeing is US hegemony being challenged. And if it has to come from Russia, then so be it. Because Russia and China right now, China diplomats are quoted as saying that we are more than allies. They are importing record amounts of coal right now. Russia's ruble has grown even stronger. They're using a gold standard, which the last time that I know of that someone tried to adopt a gold standard was Gaddafi. And we all know what happened to him. And make no mistake, Saddam Hussein, and again, he wasn't a perfect leader. He doesn't have to be, but he was keeping the region stabilized, and he also challenged the petrodollar. That's why we went into Iraq. It had nothing to do with anything else. I'm not even entirely convinced who's behind 9/11, and I don't want to, wage conspiracy theories, but we certainly saw how this government ignores people dying from coronavirus. The same numbers that happen in 9/11 are happening on a weekly basis. But 9/11 was weaponized for this country to go into illegally into countries it had no business going into, and preemptively. We saw this whole narrative being created that now we can preemptively attack countries. But yet when Russia is defending what's happening on its own borders, it's being attacked hypocritically by America, who waged these wars and killed millions of civilians. Over 90% of people killed by drone strikes are civilians and not even the original target. But these war crimes are completely ignored. And now we have UN denouncing everything that Russia is doing. While Russia's asking for investigations, they're being denied. And they're being framed as, worse than Hitler is the phrase that I'm hearing used. So I think what we're doing here, informing people and having these conversations, is where everything needs to start. But I'm 41 years old. I've been an organizer and an activist my entire life. And I would really like to see some meaningful change happen before I die. And I think I'm about halfway. So it's good to have these conversations, but ultimately, I would love to see everybody watching this start organizing in their communities, start building solidarity, start taking action. We can't just be angry online or in our communities. Until we're ready to make some sacrifices and get uncomfortable and build solidarity with people, this is never going to change, and it will get worse. From what I'm seeing, it's getting progressively worse. And I'm just waiting for especially the American population to get fed up enough and angry enough to rise up, to get into the streets. The biggest problem I see with the George Floyd protests, when we had that energy, is that we went home before any of our demands were met. Why did we go home? Why did we stop? It is not enough to just burn down a police station and cause ruckus in the street for a week. We have to build these structures, and we have to have strategy. We have to have our own food supplies. We have to have our own shelter, so that we can maintain this energy in the streets for a long enough time that will force these people to meet our demands and not back down. And I love having these conversations, but we got to turn our anger into action. And that is what I would love to see from everybody watching this. Just take action in your community. Start connecting with people, start organizing, start building coalitions, start taking action. And on that note, I actually wanted to ask you, Sam, what actions are there happening that you're a part of, or what can you tell people besides, getting educated on the subject? What can they actually be doing to assist your movement and to take part?
Great question. So, USPCN, U.S. Palestinian Community Network, the organization I am a member of, we are Palestinian and Arab only. So if you are Palestinian or Arab interested in joining USPCN, please shoot us an email. Get in touch with us on social media, wherever you are in the States, and even Canada. But everybody else, I encourage everybody. Of course, you can always donate to USPCN as well. That's great. We love donations. But I think what everybody could also do is join an organization. If you're not a member of an organization, you should join one. And there is an organization I always also recommend people to join and to follow, which I think are doing amazing work, and we are steering members of the National Alliance Against Racism and Political Repression, which has several campaigns across the country in different cities to try to enact community control of the police, which is the first step of getting defunding the police and building more power to the people in Black and brown communities. But that's an option, right? If you do want to support Palestinian work, follow our page and look at where we have different campaigns and different actions in across the country, and ways you could also always message us and let us know if there's nothing happening in your city. We'll get you in touch with someone there, or if we have a chapter there, or if we have any campaigns happening. But also, there's always BDS campaigns on different universities and stuff. There's different chapters like Students for Justice in Palestine. I recommend that people can support. Whatever you're involved in, wherever you work or you're involved in, there's always a chance that you can do research and see where the money's flowing, and there's a high chance that there's an Israeli company involved. So you could also engage in BDS campaigns that way as well. But if all these options are not available for you, I think you just find an organization that fits you. Find an organization that is anti-imperialist and anti-capitalist, and of course doesn't tokenize people, right? It actually builds grassroots power, and it doesn't do under the table deals with corrupt politicians and police departments, and get involved with them in any way. There's organizing that can happen in different areas. You did mention food sovereignty, right? That's good. That's an option. There's always immigrant rights movements and organizations people can join. Police accountability organizations that people can join. So see what's available and what's around you and what fits you best, and organize and organize your folks, organize your people. If you're white, organize white people. If you're Black, and organize Black people. If you're If you're Latino, organize Latinos, and if you're, Asian, organize, Asian communities, in your area, same thing. So, get involved. um, you know, Having conversations like this is important because it collectively educates us. But these conversations are not going to lead to anything if we're not putting the practice after the theory, right? You need both, right? So we need to put things in practice, and we need to materially change the conditions, right? And that's not going to happen if we're not building people power all across this country, in different areas of in different sectors of our society. So that would be my advice, and that would be. And if you can't do any of that, you should donate. Should find a way to donate in any way or help in any way possible. I mean, there's a lot of virtual work that you could do as well for organizations that if you can't physically be there for them. So you just got to figure out what's best for you, and what's the what's in your area of expertise, and also area of like where you live as well.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on. We know you didn't have a ton of prep for this. You just jumped on to help provide us with content. We definitely appreciate that. And I also want to share this thought too, because we about to transition to the next segment. So I don't want to take too much of your time, Hassan. So we do appreciate you coming on. Not everyone has a role in this movement. Everyone can do little things that can help the movement, even if you're really busy, you tied down, you don't have a ton of money. I want to give a shout out to our brother Rome while we got him here, because this is kind of stuff that we are trying to do. This kind of stuff that I would love to see expanded on, and this is a true leader here. And whether it be raising funds, collecting diapers, and doing that kind of stuff for your community, this kind of stuff we need to see more of. Even if you can't, most people can't do what Rome do, right? So if you can help babysit someone's kid for free, that's another version of mutual aid, another form of activism. Everyone has a role. So this kind of stuff we want to see more of, and this kind of stuff we need to really start working on in terms of action. So I actually want to read the schedule because we got the JB show coming up next. We're gonna let you go, Hassan. Thank you for your time, and I would still love to hear from the elder and hear from you guys. So if you guys are open, I'm still down to doing like another formal segment where we can talk to you guys. But anyway, let me know. Thank you guys. Thank you for coming on. Any last words? Anything else you want?
Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor, and we'll stay in touch, man. Thank you.
All right, thank you, man. Thank you.